kicked off here. I think based on those couple of polls that we had, I think we've got a good presentation lined up for everybody today. Looks like a little bit more than half of you out there who are using analysis services or aren't even using analysis services today will get some great benefit out of this, because you're going to see a lot of net new features inside of Azure Analysis Services. Those of you, the 40-some% I think it was, that said you're currently either using tabular or tabular and multidimensional, you guys are going to see a little bit of a refresher here at the very beginning, and then we're going to get into some of the things that are unique to Azure Analysis Services, and also just show you how Azure Analysis Services fits in with your current environment. And then it looks like pretty much everybody, save a small percentage of folks there, are brand new to Azure Analysis Services. So I want to demystify some of the things around this and really show you that for those who are familiar with analysis services, Azure Analysis Services is going to be very, very easy for you to get into. You're not going to have to learn a whole lot of new things, but I will show you some of the advantages of using a PaaS service, which is what Azure Analysis Services actually is. So real quick before we hop into that, let me just introduce myself. I'm Brad Schacht. I am a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. I focus on state and local government customers on the East Coast of the US, and I focus in the data platform space. So a lot of my time is spent with customers doing proof of concepts and talking to them about tools like Azure Analysis Services and Azure SQL Data Warehouse, two tools that tend to go together quite a bit. And I know Pragmatic has some great webinars out there on Azure SQL Data Warehouse there if you are interested in that as a backend for analysis services as well. So I've got a couple of slides here just to give you some lay of the land, so everybody's kind of on the same page here. You know, obviously there's a cloud, this whole cloud area where Microsoft is building out the Azure cloud and adding more and more services. One of the newest ones to that suite is going to be Azure Analysis Services. And what you essentially see is a lot of these services that you set up on premise, where we have things like SQL Server Analysis Services or SQL Server Reporting Services, or just the database engine itself. We see a lot of those services come into the platform as a service model. So you don't have to worry about managing your hardware behind that. In a lot of cases, backup is taken care of for you. Things like disaster recovery and high availability are already taken care of. So Azure Analysis Services is just the next one of those items that has been brought into the platform as a service fold there. So we've already done things like Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Data Warehouse for your relational database engine. You'll see on the slides there that Power BI has been deployed out to supplement, or in many places actually replace, reporting services. For a lot of my customers, all they use is Power BI now. So Azure Analysis Services, great thing about all of the services in Azure is that Azure AS fits in just with everything else. So that means that everything else is kind of plug and play with it. There's not all kinds of new tools that you have to buy for it, or new tools that you have to learn for it. Everything kind of connects natively, which is really nice for those trying to get into, make that move into the cloud. Okay. Azure Analysis Services, again, if you're familiar with the tabular engine on-prem, then you're going to be very familiar with what we're going to see inside of Azure. So it's built on those same semantic models. So where we go in, we build relationships, and we use DAX to build calculations and those sort of things. That's the same technology that we're using here. It's been in development inside of SQL Server, the box product of SQL Server, since the 2012 release. We saw it make its debut shortly before that in 2010 inside of Power Pivot, inside of Excel. So this technology is not something that just came out yesterday and we're shoving it into the cloud and we're saying, hey, go use this. We've had this technology around for 7+ years in various formats, and we're now just bringing it into that platform as a service. What that gives you is the ability to go out and provision and scale on demand. So I can go out to Azure right now, provision a brand new analysis services server, and then if I go and put a development model out there and tomorrow I get 5,000 users that want to hit it, I can go and just click a button and I can scale it up. That's really one of the big advantages of this PaaS environment is you don't have to worry about going and building a VM and joining it to a domain and then making sure that the VM is patched and that SQL Server is up to date and all those sort of things. We're going to take care of all that for you in that backend. So all you really have to do is worry about building the best model possible to meet your business needs, and then also make sure that you scale it up and scale it down whenever you need to in order to meet the performance needs that you have as well. Okay. So analysis services, again, traditionally an on-prem tool there. We see it connects to a variety of data sources, SQL Server. You can also connect it to other relational databases out there if you'd like to, things like Oracle, Teradata, those sort of things. And essentially all we've done is we've taken that same technology, again, same authoring tools, same development environment, same connectivity. So Visual Studio is still going to be your development environment. SQL Server Management Studio is still going to be your admin environment there. And all we've done is we've taken that service and we've moved it into the cloud and extended the functionality for it. So now there's a lot better integration in the cloud between other cloud-borne data sources. So things like, again, Azure SQL Database and SQL Data Warehouse both live in the cloud. It makes sense when you have those very large data sets in the cloud that your analysis services model built on top of those is in the cloud along with it. It reduces your data transfer, and it also reduces the latency on your reporting and your updating of your data. The great thing though is, as with everything that we build in Azure at this point, we have that hybrid story built into it. So we're not going to leave your on-prem data sources behind. You're still going to be able to connect to that. And if we have enough time, we'll actually show you a small piece of that today as well, how we're going to be able to connect from a cloud analysis services back to an on-prem data source in SQL Server. Okay, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with analysis services, there was a good chunk of folks who are just saying, hey, I'm not using analysis services today. So, maybe why do I even care about this topic? Well, what analysis services is going to do for you is help make sure that everybody has the right version of the truth. You go into, I did consulting before I was at Microsoft, and a lot of times you'd walk into the room and we would start doing requirements gathering, and we'd say, how do you calculate profit? Well, the CEO is going to maybe calculate it one way, finance is going to calculate it a different way, marketing might calculate it a different way, and then we end up with 4 or 5 different numbers that all say profit next to them, but we don't really know which one is the actual real profit number. So as you see here, we get a bunch of data, we get 2 different analysts, we might come up with 2 very different numbers for revenue in this particular case. What analysis services allows us to do is it allows us to centralize all that logic to a single version of the truth. So we get everybody together, we make a decision at some level up the hierarchy and the org chart that says, here is how we are going to report revenue. And then that calculation goes into our analysis services model. And that way it doesn't matter if it's somebody in finance or somebody in marketing or just somebody in HR that wants to go out and pull some of this data. They always have the exact same profit. They always have the exact same revenue. They always have the exact same headcount. Everybody is looking at the same version of the truth. If you're familiar with using Power BI and you're one of the big Power BI users out there, the other nice thing about this is it means you don't have dozens and dozens of Power BI workbooks out there to maintain. We can create one analysis services model and everybody can just connect into that single analysis services model with all their different Power BI workbooks. Okay. So again, Power BI, or analysis services, what it's going to do is help build a more user-friendly layer for people to connect to. If you're a DBA out there listening in, or if you've ever done database development in the past, or maybe you're one of those folks out there that's joining today saying, hey, I want a better way to be able to get to my data, maybe analysis services is for you, because it can be we get source systems that have all kinds of joins required inside of them, field names that aren't very friendly, and it can be very confusing for users that don't live in that system day in and day out, and that can also lead to bad analysis. What analysis services is going to allow us to do is make that a much more end-user friendly environment. So you'll see that the column names are different inside of analysis services. They're going to be business-facing column names inside of there instead of just column names that we would traditionally use in a database environment. We're gonna flatten out some of the table structure. So it's just a nice way to be able to easily consume that data in any variety of self-service BI tools, whether that's something like Power BI or even something like Excel. You know, we've already talked about this a little bit, and I'll be sure to distribute this slide deck afterward as well, but analysis services in the cloud is built off the same engine that we have for analysis services on-prem today. So everything that you see in SQL Server 2017 that just released a few days ago is going to be shown here inside of Azure Analysis Services. The caveat that I'll go ahead and let you guys know, because the question inevitably comes up, is I'm going to show you everything today dealing with analysis services tabular. The question though comes up, what about multidimensional? The answer to that is today, there is not a supported deployment model for Azure Analysis Services to handle multidimensional. That being said, if you go out and look at all the blog posts and look at some of the things in the forums and stuff that the product team members have talked about, that is something that they are working toward. I don't have a timeline on when that would be, but just know that today Azure Analysis Services is tabular only, and that in the future it will allow you to do multidimensional out there as well. But from what the advances in tabular have done between the 2016 and now the 2017 release of Analysis Services, there's very few gaps that would actually make me suggest a multidimensional model to a customer over the tabular model. Tabular models are really where a lot of the development is going, and so if you can go that route, I would highly recommend just going with the tabular model, and then you have the ability to leverage Azure Analysis Services here. Okay, just a couple more little slides here just to make sure everybody's on the same page, and then I'll actually show you some of this stuff here. Okay. So again, same tools that we've seen so far, cloud data sources, on-prem data sources, doesn't matter. They all live in the same place. You all use the same tools that you're used to using today inside Visual Studio to do the same modeling that you're used to today. And I'll show you some of these tools when we get going here in just a moment. Okay, and then the last thing here, just a couple of scenarios that I see customers use quite frequently. And I'm going to show you two of these in demos here in just 1 second. So the first one is going to be moving an existing model. So maybe you're one of those customers that says, I want to get out of the data center business. I want to get out of the need to manage those patches on my servers, or manage patching of SQL Server and installing the new version of SQL Server and doing all those sort of things. You just want to be able to focus on building the best model possible. Well, the lift and shift scenario is a very common one. So being able to take an analysis services tabular model from on-prem today and moving that into the cloud in Azure Analysis Services and just repointing your connections up there is really, really easy. And I'll actually show you that in the first demo today. We're going to build a quick model, deploy it on-prem, and then I'm going to show you how easy it is to switch that and deploy it out to Azure Analysis Services, and then just repoint your connections over there. So super easy if you're in that scenario today where you just want to stop having to maintain that on-prem server, we can get you out of that pretty easily. One other thing that I'm going to show you guys is Power BI. So Power BI is a great tool for a variety of things, including prototyping. So a lot of times when I go to customers, before we actually build any Azure Analysis Services models or tabular models in general, we'll actually fire up Power BI because it's an easy way to go in and do a lot of the same modeling that we would do inside of the tabular models, but do it in a more agile manner. So we can sit in a room and visualize the data and model the data all in one tool. And then once we know we've got a good starting point for our model, then we'll upsize it and make it into a more enterprise-ready model. So that's really the second major scenario that we see, in addition to, of course, net new workloads of analysis services, is taking your Power BI models and turning them into an enterprise-ready analysis services model. You get a lot of advantages from doing that. You can keep the data more up to date if you need to. You get much larger model sizes inside of analysis services than what you can do in Power BI. It allows you to connect multiple Power BI models into the same analysis services model, so you can reuse that model multiple times. And also there's a lot of functionality around around security that we can build into Azure Analysis Services, where we drive security based off the users, and it makes it a little bit more secure and more robust than what we have available to us inside the Power BI tool. So 2 major scenarios, lift and shift and Power BI to analysis services. And again, I'll show you both of those here in just one moment. So with that, let's go ahead and hop into a demo here, and we'll actually build ourselves an analysis services model. And then, like I said, we'll get it deployed out to our on-prem server, and then I'll show you what this looks like inside the cloud. So here we are inside of one of my virtual machines. I've got running in Azure here, just a Visual Studio 2017. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Visual Studio 2017, you can also do this in 2015. But with 2017, we're going to be able to get to the analysis services tools a little bit differently than we have in previous versions. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this little notification icon up here at the top, and you'll see all your updates and everything inside of here. There's another menu that you can get to these updates up here at the top as well for the extensions and updates. But this is essentially where you do all your updating of all the tools. And then you can see any of the extensions that we have added in here. So I've got like my analysis services pieces inside of this, inside of here saying that I've got it installed. So no longer are you gonna go download SQL Server data tools. You're actually gonna come to this extensions and updates, which I believe is on the tools menu there. And then you're gonna go over here to online, and then you're gonna search for analysis services. So if we do a search for analysis services there, you'll see I've already got that one installed there. Okay, so that's how you're going to get to these. If you are using Visual Studio 2017, there is no SQL Server Data Tools business intelligence portion project download any longer. It's all done through those extensions and updates. All right, so I'm going to go here, do a new project, and I am just going to do a new analysis services tabular project, and we're going to use the good old trusty Adventureworks here. So I'm just going to call this project Adventureworks. Do OK. And with the newer versions of data tools and the newer versions of analysis services, we have these 2 options here, either an integrated workspace or workspace. So real quick on this, the difference between those 2 is integrated workspace does not require me to have an analysis services server set up someplace inside of my environment. If you're working with this in the 2012 and 2014 environments, I believe this was required in 2014 also. I'd have to go check and see when exactly that came out with Service Pack and all that. But you used to have an analysis services server already set up where all this work would be done. So as you make changes, it would make changes on the server for you automatically. So now we've got the option, instead of having to set up an AS instance just for doing my development processes here, I can develop independently on my machine versus somebody else in the organization developing independently on their machine. Okay. Next thing down here at the bottom is a compatibility level. So I'm going to keep this one today at the 2016 RTM. The other level that you're going to notice that's going to be important to you is going to be this 2017 and Azure Analysis Services 1400. Okay. So this one right here is going to be very important to everybody going forward, given the patches and everything that I've got on my computer here in order to make this all work. I'm actually just going to use this one here. So if you have existing 2016 tabular models, so for that 40-some% of you out there that are currently using Azure or are currently using tabular, you can have existing 2016 models out there that we can just put right into the cloud. No updates are required or anything like that. So we can take those models, lift and shift them very, very easily. The other thing that we'll do that we won't be able to get to today, but there's a lot of really good content out there, is there's some feature enhancements in the 2017 release. So if you're familiar with the Get Data experience in Power BI, where you get that whole list of different data sources and everything, that's now available here inside of Analysis Services as well. But in order to get access to that, you do have to choose that 1400 version, okay? So this will be all the latest and greatest, the new hotness, all that kind of good stuff is going to be in the 1400s. Today, we're going to focus on a model in the 1200s. From an end user perspective though, honestly, they're not going to know the difference. They're never going to know which one of those you've chosen unless you happen to use a feature in the back end that doesn't work in one of them. Okay, so we'll let that project load up here. And then I'm going to switch from the Tabular Model Explorer over here to my Solution Explorer. Okay, so again, same as what we're used to seeing here. We've just got our model, and we're going to click on the Import from Data Source option up here at the very top of the screen. So I'm going to click Import from Data Source, And I'm actually going to pull data from one of my on-prem, or actually in this case, I think I'm going to pull from a cloud version of SQL Data Warehouse. So if I come over here to Management Studio just to show you guys what we're actually pulling from, I've got this server here, bradshack.database.windows.net, that we're actually going to be pulling data from. And if we expand this, you'll notice that I've got my Adventureworks DW here, and inside of that, we've got all of our tables inside of here. Okay, so that's the data set that we're going to pull from. So we're still going to choose Microsoft SQL Server. You can also choose Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Either one of those will work here. I'm going to rename this here to Adventureworks and type in my server name. So bradshack.database.windows.net. I'm going to use SQL authentication here. Hit the drop down, and we're going to go to the Adventureworks DW data set there, our database, and then we'll go to the next screen here. All right, so in this case, I'm not using my Windows credentials, and I'm actually going to end up deploying this up to the cloud. As long as we have access with all the correct accounts and everything, we won't get too far into this, but for what we're going to do today, just using the service account here is going to be just fine for us. Okay, at this screen, this is where we get the opportunity to either select from a list of tables, or we can come in here and we can actually write a query for the data that we want to bring in. So we're going to go ahead and select from a list of tables. And we're just going to check off a couple of them here. So I want to have things like dim customer, dim date, see, dim sales territory, dim product, and then my fact internet sales table here. Okay, so again, we can, if you're familiar with this will be a little bit of a review for you, but we can change friendly names here. Friendly names just mean this is what the user is actually going to see whenever they're browsing this model inside of a tool like Power BI or Excel. So if we want them to see just internet sales because they don't understand what a fact and a dimension is, we can certainly shorten this just to internet sales. We can come here and say sales territory and product, customer and date, okay? And we're not gonna do a lot of cleanup on this model because it's not that important for what we're gonna look at today, okay? So when we click on the next button there, it's going to actually import all this data from my SQL Data Warehouse, and it's going to cache this data inside of Analysis Services. I will show you one other method for doing this called Direct Query a little bit later, and I'll show you how the on-prem gateway works with that piece as well. Right? So now that we've got this piece here, we've got all of our data. Again, we're not going to do a lot of modeling because that's not what we're here to talk about today. But I am going to show you, I'm going to go to the properties here, and I'm going to deploy this out to my on-prem Analysis Services tabular instance. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy. So it'll take just a second. Okay. So it's going to deploy all the metadata and then cache all the data inside of that model. And while Power BI fires up, I'm going to show you that model here on-prem. Okay, so again, my server that I'm connecting to, this is my on-prem server, BS SRV SQL 01. It's on my little domain here. I'm going to click connect. And there's that Adventureworks database that we just, in that model that we just created. So if we look at all the tables, there's those tables. Okay, so again, very similar to what you're used to doing today. And we're going to just create a quick report inside of here with just a couple of visualizations on it just to drive home a couple of points for us. So what I did there was I just chose that I wanted to import data from Analysis Services. And whenever the dialog box pops up here, there we go. I'm going to point this to my on-prem Analysis Services instance. I'm going to keep this as a live connection because I don't want to cache the data yet again. I'm going to select Adventureworks and just say OK. Okay, so what I've got at this point is here's all my sales territory information. Here's all my internet sales. So what I can do here is I can just check off sales amount and then come up to date and find something like English month name and put that out here. Oh, and I forgot to do a very vital step here. Sorry about that. And that was actually telling Analysis Services how all the tables are related. So let me come over here real quick and plug these in. So sales territory key, product key, and product key. Date, we're just going to tie this one to the order date since we have multiple dates inside of there. And then customer will go to customer key. And let me get those changes deployed out there. Type in my password correctly. There we go. All right, now when I refresh, there we go. Now we get the data looking like it's supposed to here. And then we'll do just one more visualization again, just for time's sake here. We're not gonna go through a bunch of stuff, but we'll do the internet sales amount here again. And this time we'll go to our product table. And we're gonna switch this over to the tree map because I think it looks cool. And we'll go with color. Here we go. And then we'll throw this one over here. Okay, so just two quick little visuals there. And just to show you that everything is on the up and up here, we'll go ahead and put our sales territory country. And we'll tell it that we want to do the size of the bubble based on the sales amount here. So there we can see the sales by country here as well. And obviously as we click on all these different pieces here, everything else inside of our report is going to filter for us, okay? So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and save this report just so that we have it, just in case anything bad happens here. So at this point, we're not really set up any different than what you would have on-prem. So you're probably saying, yeah, that's great, but I thought this session was about Azure Analysis Services. Well, for most of you right now, this is your starting point. And I want to show you real quick how easy it is to get this moved up to analysis services in the cloud as opposed to on-prem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over to the Azure Portal here. And what you're going to do is you're going to find your analysis services. I've already got one of these, I've already got a server set up here. But what we're going to do is we're going to click on Analysis Services or go down to the More Services and then locate Analysis Services on that list. I'm going to go to the server where I want to deploy this. And you'll notice that I have a server name here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that server name. And I'm going to go over here just into Management Studio and show you what's on that server right now. So with that, I'm going to go to Analysis Services. I'm going to connect here, and I'm going to say Active Directory Password Authentication. And this right here looks very, very similar, almost exactly like what you would do to connect to an on-prem Analysis Services instance. It's just a server name. Granted, it's a much longer server name than what you're used to seeing there. And then instead of Windows authentication, I'm going to choose Active Directory Password Authentication here, and then put in my Office 365 email address and password here. So whatever ID and password I use to log into the Azure portal here would be what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and connect. And what we're going to see is I actually have just one model out here right now. We'll use this one a little bit later, but I just want to show you that there's only one model on this server at this point. So in order to deploy out there, we're going to have to make one change. That's it, just one. We're going to come here, and instead of deploying to that server, we're going to paste in our Azure Analysis Services server name, and then we're just going to redeploy that. Okay. So again, because this is deploying out to the Azure environment, we're using my credentials for the cloud there. That's what that prompt was for. So again, we'll put in our password here for our data source, and this will go out and it will process all this data and put it into the cloud. So now if I hop back over to this screen, if I refresh my set of databases, bam, now I've got that Adventureworks database out there with that Adventureworks data model inside of it. So very, very easy to get that deployed. Nothing different than what you're used to doing today, other than we change that connection string. What we're going to then do over here inside Power BI, so now we've got our model out there inside of the Azure environment. The question is, how do we connect everything to it? So all we're going to do, whether this is Power BI or whether this is reporting services or Excel, it's a very, very quick and easy change here. So all I'm going to do is go to data source settings. And instead of my server being that on-premises server, I'm just going to paste in that Azure Analysis Services name, do OK. Again, do any authentication that pops up because I'm changing my authentication from my on-prem environment up into my cloud environment. So we don't want people to just be able to go in there and anybody be able to have access to it. But go in there, change that connection string, and now I'm still able to modify this and work in my environment here. And just to prove to you that this is in fact working off the Azure version of this, I'm going to go ahead and delete my on-prem Adventureworks database and then hit refresh here, and you'll see that I can still query this data in the live query mode that we've got set up on this. So no data was cached inside of here. This report is very, very small. You can see that the actual size of it is literally in the kilobytes because there's no data that's actually stored inside of here. Okay, so really, really easy to be able to deploy out to the Azure environment by just using that server name there. Again, model 1200 or 1400 will both work here. And then inside of our Power BI environment or inside your reporting tool, all we're going to do is to edit, query, and modify that connection string to use the Azure version. Outside of that, from a tool perspective, everything is pretty transparent. Okay, so same developer experience as traditional on-prem analysis services tabular there. So everybody that's in that boat, you're good to go. Analysis services can replace your on-prem SSAS, and users, obviously, as you see here in Power BI, will see no difference in their experience. So everything's going to work the same for them. And then as you saw here again, all the tools that we use to connect to our on-prem SSAS will connect to Azure Analysis Services as well. So that's our first scenario. The second scenario here that we're going to have is to be able to take an existing Power BI report. So let's say that you've got a report in your environment, you've done a bunch of work on it, and you're really proud of it, and you want to be able to make this enterprise ready. So you want to take it from just my little my report that I use, and we want to turn this into the basis for our enterprise data model here. So what I've got is again some data from the Adventureworks data set here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this Power BI report, and I'm going to show you how to use this as the basis for your Azure Analysis Services model. Okay, so we've got a bunch of data inside of here. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And then the way that we're going to get this uploaded is we're going to come back here into the portal again and navigate back to your Analysis Services server. And then we've got this cool little option over here that we're going to dig into a little bit over the next two demos. It's called the Web Designer. This is in preview. It's still very much a work in progress, but there's some really, really cool functionality that's already inside of here and that will be coming inside of here over the next few releases, over the next 6 months or so. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Open. It's going to launch a new browser tab for us. And this is actually a whole designer built so that we don't have to do everything inside of data tools, and so that we can start building our models here inside the web browser, because we know that we do a lot of work on the database backends for getting everything ready inside of our warehouse to be able to just go right underneath an analysis services model. So what we're doing with the Web Designer here is making it really easy for you to get started here inside the cloud rather than having to use a bunch of heavy database tools. So what we're going to do to upload that file is we're going to say that we want to add a new model here. So I'm going to click the Add button, and then I'm going to give this model a name. So just like before we uploaded our Adventureworks model, this one we're going to call Sales Analysis. Okay, where's my data? We can start with cloud-born data sets here, whether they're in SQL database or data warehouse, or the way we're going to do it here is take a Power BI desktop file, and I'm going to upload that one. So I'm going to say import here. And then that's going to take just a moment because it's uploading that Power BI file to the cloud. And then inside of that Power BI desktop file, you've already got all these relationships. You've already got some calculations and those sort of things built inside of here. And it's essentially taking all that and doing all the work that we did inside of data tools just a moment ago to create ourselves a new data model here. So now inside my model section here, you'll see that I actually have an extra one called Sales Analysis. And I can click this little eyeball here and I can query that model, or I can come over here into Power BI Desktop and I can connect up to that Sales Analysis model here. So if I do this real quick, get data, and And we'll do from analysis services, paste that connection string in there for my Azure Analysis Services server. This time we're going to see an extra database on the list here. So sales analysis, click OK. And there's all those different tables that were inside the Power BI report that we just uploaded there. So everything that we've already done in Power BI, all the customers out there that start building their analytics with Power BI, but they outgrow that PBIX model, this is a great way for you to be able to not lose all that work and have to redo it. If you're moving from Power BI to analysis services, this is a great way to prototype. Again, I do that all the time with customers. We'll fire up Power BI and we'll prototype the model for a given business problem, and we'll use that. And then after moving up to analysis services, it's easy to extend that model with the same developer tools that we use for on-prem, or you can use those cloud-born tools that we'll take a little bit deeper look at here in just one moment. Okay, so we're going to hop back over to the slides here for just a second, and then we'll do our last couple of demos and then wrap up and hopefully be able to take a couple of questions here at the end. So we've already talked about some of this stuff, so I'm not going to go too deep on this. Again, I will make the slide deck available for everybody later. Visual Studio, either 2015 or 2017, I showed you how to get those analysis services models in Visual Studio 2017 there. Everything that you're used to doing in analysis services tabular 2016 is available here inside the cloud. And we don't have to worry about the size limitations that come with something like Power BI, but then once we get it up into the cloud, we can consume all this data with Power BI if we'd like to. You'll see some of the service regions that this is available down there at the bottom. There are some other ones, but I figured that was probably a good list to hit most of the folks that are going to be on this call today. If there's analysis services available in each of the US major regions, East, Central, and West there for you if you need to put it inside of a particular region there. Okay, so again, 12 and 1400, a lot of functionality that comes along with that. We're not going to dive into all the functionality that's inside of analysis services. Really, really easy to spin up a new server. I didn't show you how to spin up a new server, but it's literally just a couple of clicks there. You will notice on here that we got some pricing tiers. So there's D, B, and S. So D is for developer, B is basic, and S is standard. And I'll show you a little, one other slide about that a little bit later here. But everything that you normally do with analysis services, tabular and multidimensional, we can also do inside the portal on an administrator level. And then we've also got pause and resume functionality in addition to scaling, which again, we'll talk about when I look at the pricing slide here in just a moment. Okay. All your normal tools that you're used to using for your end users, everything just works. Excel, Power BI, other third-party tools, all of it looks the exact same. Just make sure you change that connection string there. All right, so all the pricing obviously can be found on the current up-to-date pricing anyway, can be found on the Azure page for analysis services. But there's 3 tiers. So I mentioned developer, which is really just for small data sets. You'll notice that you can cache up to 3 gigabytes worth of data inside of there. That is on shared infrastructure, and there's no SLA. So it's really just for development and testing. So you're not going to be able to go out there and connect with hundreds and hundreds of users inside of that environment because it's just not built for that. It's built for you to be able to have a lower cost environment where you can check and make sure the functionality works the way that you want it to, okay? Just like with other PaaS services, so like with the database services, we have DTUs, here we have QPUs, or query processing units. So you'll hear 40 QPUs or 80 QPUs or whatever that number happens to be there. Okay, and then obviously as you go up between standard and basic, you get larger and larger data set sizes, but you also get more and more compute power. The nice thing about Azure Analysis Services is that you can actually pause this. So a lot of times customers will say, hey, you know, on weekends, nobody's in my office, so I don't want to actually run analysis services and have to keep paying for it. Or nobody accesses the data between 9 p.m. and 4 a.m. while my ETL is running. So I really only want to run it from 4 p.m. or 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. so that I can load the model and then my users can actually use it. The nice thing here is you don't get charged for anything whenever this is paused. With tools like SQL Data Warehouse, you can pause and not get charged for compute. Same thing with virtual machines. You can shut them down and not get charged for compute. Here, you don't get charged anything whenever this is paused. So all that cache data You don't have to worry about, hey, I've got 100 gigabytes worth of cache data, and that means I'm going to pay for 100 gigabytes of cache data storage, even when the analysis services piece isn't running. Don't have to worry about any of that there. So everything's built for what you use and based on the service tier that you choose there. Okay. All the scaling up, scaling down, pausing, all that stuff can also be automated with Azure Automation and using Azure Functions. So a lot of different ways that we can actually do that. So, okay, backup and restore. This is one that hopefully I'll be able to show you here in just a moment. But really cool piece of functionality here is that because of the way that this particular tool has been built, with that lift and shift type of model in mind, we do allow you to take a backup from an on-prem analysis services tabular model and restore it into Azure Analysis Services. Likewise, you can take an Azure Analysis Services backup and restore it to an Azure to a SQL Server Analysis Services, assuming that they're the same compatibility level. So if you're running 2014 on-prem, you won't be able to take a backup from Azure and deploy it on-prem. You will need the latest version of SQL to go from Azure back on-prem, but you can take anything 20, as long as it's running in 1200 compatibility mode, and move that backup directly up to Azure Analysis Services. Okay, so let me show you that, and then we will take some time here at the end to do questions. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is we're going to dive into this web designer here for just a couple of minutes, because I want to show you all the, or not everything, but some of the cool things that we can do inside of here. So right now I have a connection to that Power BI report that we turned into an Azure Analysis Services model. And you'll notice I've got a bunch of key values inside of here. So things like currency key, customer key, due date key, order date key, all these things, they don't actually mean anything for customers. Nobody's going to be slicing data by the promotion key. So normally what we'd have to do is we'd have to go into data tools, we'd have to make some modifications and then redeploy the model out there and reprocess potentially and go through that. Well, what we can do now is with this sales analysis, I'm going to click the query model. So the first thing I'm going to show you is that we can actually check the data inside of our model right from inside the cloud. We don't even have to fire up a tool like Power BI Desktop and do this. So we can come here, we can take our sales amount, and we can say that we want to look at that by English month name, click run, and here we're going to get a small output that shows us a little preview of that data there, okay? So we can always come here into the web browser and we can query these models and make sure that what we have in the model is actually what we mean to have in the model without having to go to a bunch of other tools. The other thing up here at the top is you'll notice in addition to query, we also have the model tab. So all the things that we're used to doing in an on-prem environment, we can pretty much do here in the cloud. So if we go and find our fact internet sales, we can come over here to columns. I'm just going to start checking off all these key columns. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is on the properties tab here, I'm going to say that I want these all to be hidden. And notice that I'm editing multiple items, and then I'm going to click apply. Okay. So that's going to take just a second to apply those changes, really quick. And now when I come over here and refresh, watch this field list over here on the side. So I click refresh, that field list is much smaller now because it hid all those items. So everything that I, again, normally would have to go to data tools to do, I can do it right here inside the browser. The other thing that's really nice about this is I can manage all my relationships here as well. So if I need to make modifications to the relationships, or I can come over here and say that I want to add a new measure or add a new calculation, a calculated column inside of here, I can do all kinds of stuff here inside the web browser that I would normally have to go to the data tools environment to do. Again, the reason for this is we want to be able to give you the ability to leverage those things like your Azure SQL Data Warehouse and your Azure SQL Database without having to come back on-prem to do a bunch of development work. We want you to be able to do as much of this in the cloud as you possibly can. So for doing things like adding measures, I'm just going to click Add Measure, Count of Rows, and I'm going to say Count Rows, and this table is called Fact Internet Sales. I'm going to do Save and Close. Okay, that's going to build that calculation inside of my model. And now if I come over here and refresh, there's that count of rows calculation that I just created inside that model. Again, no processing required to do that. Didn't have to open up data tools or do anything. Do it all right there inside the browser. The other thing that's really awesome with this is if you get really good, there's the structure language for your tabular models is we can actually come in here and we can modify the structure of these models as well. So right now I'm viewing this as a diagram, okay? But I can click on this little view as diagram option here and say that I want to look at the script instead. So what this is going to do is much like if you're used to multidimensional, you load up your XMLA, this is going to allow us to view all of the JSON behind this particular model. Okay, so you can see right now the compatibility level for this is 1400. If this were in direct query mode, meaning no data is cached, we would see that here as well. But I can do this, count of rows, and then I can actually come in here and I can say format string and say currency. Okay, we know that that is not a currency value, but we'll go ahead and save that just to show you what that's going to look like to us. Okay, so we can come in here, we can make some modifications to the actual structure. We can do anything from relationships to creating new measures to modifying existing measures. And now when we refresh that, it now shows us the dollar amount. Okay, so we can do a lot of different things here. It's a very robust set of tools that we have inside the web browser for exploring the model and making modifications, modifying connection strings, adding partitions, changing calculations, adding columns, you name it, we can basically do it inside the cloud there. Okay, all right, last two things I want to show you really quickly is backup. So one of the questions that inevitably comes up is how do I back up my databases here inside of Azure Analysis Services? Well, inside the portal, you'll notice that we have this backups option here. Okay, I have this enabled right now. By default, this is disabled. Essentially, all we do is we pick a storage account, and then we pick a container inside that storage account. So I'm going to actually go ahead and open this up real quick inside my Storage Explorer and make sure that we're connected over here. Okay, so inside Storage Explorer, we're going to navigate over to that storage account that I have all my backups saved in, which is going to be my Brad Schacht storage account, and then Azure Analysis Services backups is the container. So right now I have one backup inside of there. So great thing about this is all the way that you're used to doing backups with analysis services still works here as well. So this sales analysis model here, if I just right click on this, again, this is the one in the cloud. You notice that I'm connected to the cloud, right click on that model, and then we're just going to say backup. Okay, so I'm going to right click on here, say backup. I don't want to encrypt this one, but where I actually place this is you'll notice that it's going into my storage account here. So what this is going to do is allow me to come in here and say sales analysis, do OK. And the same tools again that you're used to using here, this will now show up inside of my storage account. Okay. If I wanted to restore one here as well, I could do the same thing. I could say that I want to restore. When I browse on my Azure Analysis Services, I can just pick whichever model that I'd like, and I can do a restore here as well. Again, I can take a backup of one of my on-prem data models. I can copy it into my blob storage account here, and then I can come back and do a restore on the cloud version of Analysis Services there also. Okay? So backup and restore, super easy. Just drop it into blob store there, and you can do you can keep that for however long you'd like, whether that's a day or whether you have a longer retention policy that you need to keep in mind there. Okay. One of the things that was introduced fairly recently in here is firewall support. So down here, just two options below backups is going to be firewall. So right now my firewall is turned off, which is why I can come in here and I can browse the data and I can click on things and everything works. If I come in here and I want to enable the firewall, and I click save, now what's going to happen if I try to refresh this or if I try to do anything else here. Okay, now that that's completed, let's see here. So refresh. Okay, where am I connected to? Okay, not sure why that's doing that. Firewall on, so that should, in theory, be telling me that I can't actually connect to that data set there. So let me do one thing here. Let me see if it's just a cache connection in there, and hopefully that will allow me to restrict access to that model there. So we'll go ahead and come in here and say that we want to import data from Analysis Services. Once our Get Data screen opens up here, from Analysis Services, we want to connect live, and there's our error message. So now that we try to connect to that Analysis Services model again here, we get an error message saying, hey, it's not available. There's a firewall rule in place. Come over here, we can turn that firewall off, save that, and then we would be able to reconnect in here to that model. Okay, last thing, and then we'll take just one or two questions here to wrap up. So Erica, if you want to go ahead and start taking a look through the questions there and figure out where we want to take questions for the last couple of minutes here. I will show you the on-prem data connectivity here. So if we go into my on-prem connection test model here, I'm going to open this in the web designer. This one is actually, it's deployed obviously to my Analysis Services server in Azure, but it's leveraging the on-prem gateway. So all of my data here actually exists inside of my my data set on-prem. So if I come over here and view the script, we'll see that the storage mode for this is actually direct query, again, meaning no data is stored here. And my source server is actually that virtual machine that I'm running there. Okay, so so if we take a look at that, we've got the on-prem piece there, and then if we go over here into the browser, my on-prem gateways, this is the way that we tell Analysis Services where the data is actually coming from on-prem. And if I click disconnect on that gateway there, give that 1 second to disconnect here. Okay, so gateway is disconnected. And if we come over here and now we try to query this data, if I try to come over and say, show me the sum of that, assuming that that's actually disconnected, here's what we'll get. So on-premise gateway is required to access this data source. Please install the gateway for that server. If I come back over here and I reconnect that gateway, and then I try to run this query again, then I'll be able to get my data in from on-prem there, and you'll see the sum of that particular one is 10 there. Okay, so a lot of different pieces of functionality here. Again, I'll make this slide deck available for everybody so you guys can have all those slides. Any questions that we don't get to, which I know we're not going to get to all of them in the last minute and a half here though, I'll just have Erica email those over to me, and I will post a blog out on my blog, which is just bradleyshack.com, and I'll put the Q&A out there for anything that we don't get to. So Erica, if you happen to have any questions there that you think might be good for us to look at here in the last couple of minutes, go for it.
All right, let me see here. Okay, what are the source control options for Azure SSAS?
So the source control options are all going to be the same as what you use for Analysis Services on-prem. So the projects are the same. So whether that's using something like GitHub or TFS or SVN, all those same tools will work, because you're still going to build, in order to put those in source control, you're still going to need to build a project inside of Visual Studio on-prem or on your workstation. So same thing that you're used to using today.
All right, here's another one. Similar to 2016 SSAS tabular models, can I lift and shift SSAS 2012 models too?
So what you'd likely have to do, I'd have to check and see what the compatibility level is, but anything compatibility level 1200 or later will allow you to deploy it, do lift and shift directly to Azure. I can't remember honestly off the top of my head what the compatibility level is for some of those older ones, but what you likely need to do is maybe spin up a virtual machine in Azure and spin up a virtual machine in Azure and then put that onto a 2014 VM real quick and then move it up into Azure if it's not already at the 1200 compatibility level. So it might just be one extra hop, but easy way to get there.
All right, and let me take one more question. How do you process the queue via an automated method, not manually, for Azure AS?
Sure. So there's two ways to do that: Azure Automation and Azure Functions. There's a really great blog by one of the product team guys out there on how to do that. So if you do a search for process Azure Analysis Services, Azure Functions, then you'll find that blog out there. And also I'll post a link to that blog in the follow-up that I do on my blog. I'll go out there and find it for you guys and put that out there, because that is a pretty common question, is how do we do that in the Azure environment? So I'll make sure to get you the resource for that one.
Awesome. Well, it is a little bit past 12. I will send these questions over to you, Brad, so that you can do that follow-up blog post. I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for joining our webinar today. As always, we do record all of our sessions, and we will be sending all of the registrants a follow-up email that includes a link to the recording of this session. You can also find the recording on our website at pragmaticworks.com. I usually post it a few hours after the webinar wraps up. So thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday for another free training session. Thanks, Brad.
Cool. Thanks, Erica. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.